Angeles County. In the middle of the 20th century, smog was a very serious problem. In fact, they classified Los Angeles as the smog capital of the world at that point. And then efforts were made to reduce smog, and this effort's been ongoing ever since. And it's been very successful. Smog is not a problem anymore. It's the air is quite clean. There are still problems with the inversion layer, and the mountains, Santa Monica and San Gabriel Mountains, still create haze. But what you see as haze now is not what existed back in 1950 in Los Angeles. And so regulatory agencies were set up to do actions to reduce smog. In 1967, the California Air Resources Board was set up to cover statewide regulations, primarily on mobile sources like cars and trucks and buses. And then in 1976, there was an agency set up for Southern California called the South Coast Air Quality Management District that was supposed to deal with stationary sources like power plants, any manufacturing business that generated some type of emissions. And this also involved activities at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach and all over Southern California. And as time has progressed, the science that I've been involved with, which is called epidemiology, has been used to generate information on the health effects of air pollution. And the main driver of all of this is called particulate matter, and it's the particles that are generated by combustion. And the biggest example of this recently are all the forest fires up in Northern California and the other fires that we've had down here in Southern California. They generate massive amounts of fine particulate matter. But going further down the list, you have other manufacturing processes that are like at a steel mill. There used to be a steel mill out in Fontana that is no longer there. It's been moved to China. And there are other manufacturing processes that have generated smaller amounts of fine particulate matter. And then as you keep going down the list, you get to diesel trucks. Diesel trucks also generate a small amount of fine particulate matter. And to give you a perspective, over the lifetime of a person, say 80 years, roughly, you would inhale approximately 1 teaspoon of particles that are invisible. These particles are only about 1/25 the diameter of a human hair, so you can't see them, but they are measurable if you have the right equipment. But the amounts that you inhale are so infinitesimal that you can't believe that this would be harmful. But these epidemiologic studies have been used, especially during the last 25 years, to make the case that people are dying prematurely. That is, their death rate is increased by increased levels of exposure to fine particulate matter. And so what's happened now is that the California Air Resources Board and the South Coast Air Quality Management District have implemented regulations that are originate from EPA in Washington, but they're done in such a way that the regulations maximize the efforts to control these fine particles, and they use something called the precautionary principle, which is if you want to err on a regulation, you err on the side of more regulation than might be warranted by the uncertainties that exist. And this whole area has been uncertain since the seminal paper that was published in 1993. We're now almost 26 years since that paper was published. Another seminal paper was published in 1995. These were used to establish the standards that for fine particulate matter, which first started in 1997. And they've gotten stricter since 1997. And they're now at a level where you have to be pretty close to background, just what exists in nature, in order to satisfy these low levels of what's called the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. And so in the meantime, the problem, these regulations have reduced smog, and they have improved the air quality. But from my point of view as a scientist, who's now I've had a career at UCLA that started in 1973, and I've know all the key scientists involved in this issue all across the country. It's unfortunate, but most of them that have had influence with EPA are what are called activists. Scientists are not supposed to be activists. They're supposed to be objective seekers of the truth. And when you're an activist, you sometimes do things that result in findings that really aren't as objective as they should be.
Okay, so okay, so Jim, let me bring in Randy now to sort of, in other words, what you're saying is that bad science is harming American workers. It's bad science. It's not good science. And we can tie this into the new green plan of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So Jim, let me have Randy.
If you don't mind, let me just add a couple more minutes.
Okay.
This will relate directly to Randy.
Okay.
So part of this in Los Angeles was started about 2008. They, South Coast Air Quality Managers, came up with a program called the Clean Truck Program, and it was designed to remove diesel trucks from Los Angeles that were older than a certain year. And the levels of emissions from diesel trucks have been coming down steadily, but instead of just letting the trucks age out and have to be replaced when they're worn out, they put mandatory changes that you could not use the trucks after if they were older than a certain year. And this artificially changed the lifestyles of the truck drivers that were driving these trucks. And the claims upon which diesel is only a tiny generator of fine particulate matter compared to something like a forest fire or other combustion products. And so this is really unfair to throw the burden onto diesel trucks, but this is the way it's worked, because diesel trucks are something you can control. Forest fires, as we've found out in the last 2 years, are not controlled. They should be controllable, but they're usually acts of nature or failure on the part of utilities or others that start the fires. So this is basically where we stand. And these regulations have driven out a lot of manufacturing. As I said, the Kaiser Steel plant has gone to China. All kinds of tire manufacturers, aerospace, so forth, have moved out of California because they can't compete because of the regulations. And so this is where you see a need to make sure that objective science is used. And the group that I work with shows that the regulations are just too excessive and they're not necessary.
Right.
And so this is basically the sort of a quick summary of where we stand.
Okay. So right now, unnecessary and excessive regulations is driving workers out of business. So now I want to bring in Randy, and you're a diesel truck. You had a diesel truck business. So tell my listeners, talk to them about your business.
Okay. My name's Randy Thomas. I grew up here in the Los Angeles area, born and raised in Los Angeles. I started in transportation when I was about 17 years old, and worked diligently behind the growth of the container industry. Started working as a warehouseman at California Cartage Company, and we saw an opportunity to go into transportation because the growth of containerized freight, import and export, was overwhelmingly taking the basin here, and they didn't have enough carriers to handle it. I found myself out of high school. I worked for Douglas. At 20 years old, I found myself in a position to buy a tractor. And during the Vietnam conflict, I worked as a over-the-road driver for Global Van Lines, who also did a lot of work for Air America at that particular time during the Vietnam. By the end of the Nam situation, 74, 75, I went up to 3 tractors, and we were working in the basin of South Central. We were draying export loads of scrap material such as paper and scrap metal to and from the ports of Los Angeles. And that started in 1971. And every year we picked up another truck. Our yards were in the Watts area. And at that particular time, we had a large amount of young men who were going a lot of different ways. And we had a training program, and we hired guys. We bought more trucks. And before I know it, I was up to about 15 trucks. And business is going good. It was a very positive aspect to see in South Central LA. And we saw other individuals such as myself come into the business doing the same thing. About 2008, we're hearing rumbles of a clean truck program. Now, by this time, we had utilized the basic manual engines that we'd had from, say, 1955 up to 88, 89. Very, very reliable engines. Trucks would run 1-2 million miles. But they militarized them to where these were just a small heaping monsters, behemoths, causing cancer on the corridors of Los Angeles. And it was just horrible. But I noticed in each and every one of these meetings that we went to that were bringing these claims, they weren't scientists. They were all involved in a labor union, basically the Teamsters Union. And we're like, wait a minute, what does the Teamsters Union have to do with clean air? And it wasn't until later that we found out that this was an agenda brought forth between Villaraigosa, the mayor at that time, and Obama to somewhat shore up the Teamsters membership. Teamsters has ran out of money. They're cutting pensions in their their Midwest fund. People that had been looking forward to getting $3,800 a month are getting $1,200. And the realization that there was right at 150,000 individual independent truckers that drayed containers to and from the ports of America. So this concept, this campaign, not only it started here in LA, because at that particular time we had 16,000 registered trucks that were draying containers to and from the ports. But this went to every port in America to convince the municipalities and city leaders that this needed to be done. And the problem that we looked at was that the concept was not proven. There's no testing facility that can measure the amount of carbon monoxide that's emitted from any diesel engine. They tried to put one together here in Riverside. It can't do it. So everything's based on theory. We were given from 2008 to December the 31st of 2009 to either find somebody that would finance you with a 2009 or newer truck or no longer do business. Now, we had a mayor, thank God we don't have him anymore, Tony Villar, who had literally put a employee mandate in this concession that we had to buy. Prior to that, we had public utilities and DOT requirements and highway patrol requirements for our trucks. And we were the most active terminal in the United States, the Port of Long Beach and Los Angeles. Now you're not going to be able to own a truck if you drive a truck in the city of LA. This input of this requirement was knocked down by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. But to think a mayor is going to if that's not socialism, I don't know what that is.
Right.
You're not going to be able to own the truck that you drive.
Right.
What was given in this ploy that the Teamsters and the city political stooges was not only kickback, but the fact that we'll be able to these guys are going to that work for these independents, these ITs they call us. They'll go to work for these larger companies, and at that time we'll unionize them, and we'll be able to shore up our membership. That was basically what the Clean Truck Program was. It was very racist. Whenever they was going to have a town hall meeting where there was going to be a large amount of black people, they got black preachers to stand in the background so the cameras would hit their faces. And the same thing when they was going into a Hispanic, they had their pedophile priests up there standing, throwing the water on everybody. And, so you looked at it and you said, gee, I guess it's all right. Because there's Reverend William S. Smart up there, and it must be okay. And individuals had nothing to do with transportation. It had nothing to do with the community. And this was an absolute farce.
Yeah. See, folks, this is an example. You're hearing something that happened in reality, in practice, as to what like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has with her new green plan. Okay. This is reality. This is what happens. See, the politicians are in control and maneuvering everything and making people do this, that, and the other. Because they're controlling the whole process, getting kickbacks on the side, right? And this is all theory. Okay.
It's all theory.
It's not science.
No, my background.
Oh, go ahead.
my background is basically that of engineering. You know, I was not, like I mentioned to you, I didn't sing very good in high school.
Right.
So I raced a lot of cars and I raced a lot of trucks and I played a lot of games with fuel. So we knew how to make things explode and go fast. And we intentionally didn't buy certain engines because they were not dependable. This diesel particulation filter that they had on the truck, when the first one came out, the exhaust temperature on those engines that we have is about 855 cubic inches. And the exhaust temperature is 1,300 degrees at the turbocharger. With these diesel particulations, you captured that heat and held it into a chamber until regulatory pressures went from one side to another. And then a raw shot of fuel went in there and it was supposed to burn it all off. They were made out of mild steel. Mild steel melts at 1,600 degrees. Trucks were burning up all over America. And when we brought this to the attention of the truck manufacturers and the EPA, they said, calm down, keep this on the low. Let's look at this a little deeper. What's the problem? I asked Maxine Waters. She was our congressperson at that time. Now I'm employing like 10 guys. These guys would have probably been in prison if they wasn't running for me. Okay, what are we gonna do? I don't know, you guys, we're going to fight this out to the end. Okay. I asked Maxine Waters, are you familiar with what's getting ready to happen in the harbor? We're going to lose like 750 companies. There's 8,000 drivers that's going to be replaced. And she looked at me puzzled. And she said, well, Randy, isn't there some kind of device that you could put on the truck that would clean that up? I said, yeah, but they won't let us put a diesel particulation on a truck that's a 2000 or 2005. It's got to be a 2008. And she says, well, I guess they know. I said, no, they don't know. It's the same temperature. We're dealing with the same temperature from the load of fuel that's going into the cylinder head to explode. They just want to indebt us. Then I found the person, if you read that article that I wrote in 2009, the guy, that was with the Los Angeles Business Journal. The idea was that these guys that bought these trucks were going to lose the trucks. And at that time, when he lost these trucks because of it, you went from a $15,000 truck to a $150,000 truck to do the same amount of work. So they said, well, we got to do something here. Well, let's add another $75 per load, and that'll compensate for the amount of loads that you move. And you have your clean truck program charge. How do you compensate for a piece of equipment that's 400 times the price? And it breaks down behind this diesel particulation unit because of the sensors on it.
Okay, there's my music. So we're speaking to Jim Engstrom, who is a scientist. He has a PhD in physics and a degree in epidemiology. And we're talking about the pollution in the air that is caused by manufacturing businesses and trucking businesses, diesel trucks, and so on. And there is no scientific evidence for these things. This is a theory, just like the new Green Deal is a theory. And then we're showing you with Randy Thomas an example, a business owner, a diesel truck owner that employed 15 diesel trucks, and he ran out of business because there was an agenda from the state, from the mayor, from the politicians to unionize these truckers. And then they were getting kickbacks on the side. Did you get it? Okay, anyway, there's my music. John and Bo, my sponsor, the country duo. And when we come back, we're going to continue talking about this fake, fraudulent business called politics and regulations. It's all phony deal. It's a phony deal. We'll be right back. I'm Kathleen Wells. This is the Naked Truth Report. Man, I'm here to say you're gonna get what you deserve. to give. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I was just speaking to Randy about, with this, it's all like interrelated and interconnected. Like we're learning from this Jussie Smollett business and the media, how they jumped on that, and then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and all that business, right? Everything is like corrupt. Politics is like dirty and corrupt and unethical and no integrity. The media
sounds like a party.
It's all a farce. It's all fraudulent. It's all a con. Okay. And Trump was brought in to like clean it, draining the swamp. The American people voted for Trump to clean up this corruption in DC. The politicians are corrupt at the state level, the city level, the local level. It's just all bad business, right? So anyway, Randy, finish telling us what you were telling me.
Well, so you are forced out of business. You've got the LA Slimes writing these articles about how clean the air is now. Jim Engstrom's laughing. By this time, Jim Engstrom and I got pretty, because he read the article and says, yeah, you're right. We're being asked to turn in our old pieces of equipment for a menial amount of money because they were supposed to be able to, they were supposed to destroy them, right? I had a what do you call it? Anxiety attack. And lost the whole day because I had over 50 pieces of equipment out on the streets that I could not get back into the port. Every day, that equipment was costing me $100 a day per container. And we could not take that stuff back into the harbor with the trucks that we had. Eventually, we were sued for the time we got that equipment back. I went over as an operations manager for Swift Transportation. Jerry Moyse remembered me as a teenager and had me to help him pull this finagle off of this insanity. They offered him a cash price for every truck that he put into the harbor to replace all of us that had lost our trucks. I think the check went to Swift for like $15 million. The city of LA spent over $800 million and misplaced over 61,000 lives, of which we buried about 15 people who prematurely died of strokes behind losing their business. And they made it look so diverse. They hired, they've got Chris Cannon, who has no degree in diesel. He's in charge of the port pollution. Viragosa spent $2 million, well, $1.5 million, to buy 2 electric yard horse trucks down there that they can't use because they can only work 4 hours and it takes 6 hours to charge them. And now upon all of that, containers are being, the charges for your goods to come into LA now is way over $600 a load. And there's not enough trucks to move them. And this, her name is Catherine Gantz, in charge of the whole thing, writes an apology last month. Because the apology, if you go to the Press Telegram and you look it up, they're offering you now, if you turn in your natural LNG truck, they will give you a $100,000 voucher for it, only if you agree to buy a $210,000 natural gas truck that has 0 emissions. They haven't learned anything and they don't care. The industry right now, they're making so much money off of equipment that can't come off the docks in a timely fashion. They're grinning all the way to the bank. But in the meantime, there's hardly any U.S. citizens running the trucks down there.
Who's running them?
I was replaced by Russian and Mexican trucking companies that we had no idea. They showed up with brand new trucks dozens of them. Nobody speaks English. And the drivers are all working on a card of some type. And you see them up and down the highway.
A green card.
A green card, you know. Very few U.S. born truck drivers and very few white or black truck drivers that are down there.
You see that? You hear that, folks? No, the American worker. I mean, can you imagine? I just want to relate this to like the new Green Plan. Can you imagine if we had that come to fruition? This is an example right here. Oh. And there are no more American diesel truckers down at the port of Los Angeles.
Well, not at the amount that we had prior to 2008 or 2007. When I say I live in Watts, you know, you didn't import me very far. I'm right in the hood. They say straight out of Watts, They stole that straight out of Compton. They got that from me. Okay. Our yard was there with Willie Davis Slits, right there on 112th and Wilmington Avenue. And we serviced the community. Young kids saw the name on the side of the truck. They were blue. And a lot of people walked over to me and asked me about learning how to drive. And they ended up being truck drivers. It doesn't exist down there now. And even over the road, we're 250,000 drivers short in America. I've got 750 jobs right now, starting at $55,000 a year, and we cannot find the people to drive them. And this is what we were headed for with another 8 years of what we just got done with this last 8 years.
With Obama.
With Obama.
Yeah. So, yeah, you hear it, folks. So anyway, Jim, do you want to chime in now with something?
Well, look, the regulatory burden must be rolled back, in my view, and the AQMD is just actually going in the wrong direction. They're proposing now a half-cent sales tax on everybody in Southern California in order to pay for new electrified vehicles, cars and trucks, that are not going to do anything to change the air quality, which is good. The air quality is good. It's not killing people. Randy and I are good examples of that. We've been around Los Angeles most of all our lives, and we're still functioning quite well. It's just that we're not functioning the way we should be because the regulations are not lined up with the science. And this is having just a devastating impact on driving up the cost of living and is driving out jobs that could be still here in Southern California. And so there needs to be sense brought to this, and that's one of the reasons that President Trump has implemented a number of changes at EPA. And he is rolling back a number of regulations that are mainly related to power plants, coal-fired power plants, and to other sources that were headed for extinction. And in California, they are headed for extinction. If you don't, comply with the green energy mandates, then you're not going to be able to function. And so this is where there needs to be a better understanding in the general public, and there needs to be pushback on this, because I think it's a travesty what's happened to Randy and others that were doing nothing wrong. These people were not actually causing emissions that were harmful. It's just been an exaggeration of the science. And then the politicians get a hold of this. And as he's mentioned, there's also labor involvement. There's environmental activist involvement. And there's a lot of big billionaires like Tom Steyer up in San Francisco that don't care about people like Randy. And this is wrong, and it needs to be examined and corrected. And sadly, there's a lot of involvement of the university that I've been at, UCLA, and also at USC. There's a number of scientists that are not being accurate in in what they state and in the way they interact with agencies like the AQMD. And so this has led to a generation of unjustified regulations. And I think now, if we want to have some competitiveness and accuracy in the regulations and in the science, there needs to be reforms. And so that's why I'm going to try to keep working with Randy. I admire that he's stuck with us. It's difficult. Maybe he could tell you about some of the stories of retaliation that he's faced, because it's not easy to go against powerful people like the mayor of Los Angeles and powerful agencies like AQMD. So
yes, and you know, when you mentioned electric cars, what do you think, Catherine? If you have an electric car, is it zero emissions? Do you think that? Do you think your electric car is zero emissions?
No.
What is it emitting?
Oh, I don't know.
What do you do with a lithium battery?
Mm-hmm.
Jim, you there?
Well, yes, that's right. You need to charge it.
We will never get rid of a lithium battery. When this planet is hit by a meteor 1,000 years from now, they're going to have some foreign life form says, we're picking up lithium particles all over this debris field. What were they using? Once it's built, you can't. It never goes away. But we're talking about the silliness. I'm on YouTube one night working at the Swift. I look at YouTube and I go to Vietnam truck drayage, and I see one of my tractors coming out of a gate in Ho Chi Minh Harbor with my name almost still on the door. Mary,
when you got rid of your tractor,
I turned it in to be destroyed. They paid us $3,500 for them. So everybody was turning their trucks in down here at American Eco. I asked Mary Nichols, who was at the Air Quality Board, how is it that my tractor that I turned in to be destroyed, I see it working in Vietnam, hauling containers? Her response was, well, we're not under the controls of Vietnam there. And the next thing I know, from high up at Swift, I'm asked to step down and retire. Yeah.
Such corruption, such lack of integrity. We're just like inundated. It's a cancer. Our society is seeping with the disease of corruption. Jesse Smollett is like a small example of it, but it's so symbolic, isn't it? The guy that faked the hate crime.
Oh,
everything's topsy-turvy, turned right side up or whatever. It's all a fraud. And the American people and it's good that, we had the 60 Minutes interview. I'm going to go home and watch it on YouTube with McCabe with the FBI. He was the head of the FBI. It's good that he was on 60 Minutes today because he made a confession. You see how there's just all of the tentacles of corruption are in everything.
And we look at it as normal. I catch heck. I support our president in means of transportation and means of labor. We have the lowest unemployment in South Central and we've had in 55 years. We don't have enough able-bodied individuals down there to apply that many jobs. I've got 750 jobs to run trucks cross country, and they're paying you paying you for training. And they're starting at right at $60,000.
Well, and you can't find any black men in Los Angeles to do that because they're all homeless on Skid Row.
Well, that was another issue that we had at that particular time. Was we had this faith-based initiative came about the same time that this clean truck thing come up. And here I go again. I asked Maxine Waters, Maxine, these kids, these guys are trying to get a Twix card. Transportation Workers Identification Card. They call it Twix cards. And they do a background check on you, right? Okay. I'm in my 30s. Anyway, when I got out of school, if I had, say, did a car robbery or burned my clothes, and I was charged with arson, and you was cleared, right? That investigation on that arson went all the way up to 2009. So if you had been working in the harbor as a longshoreman or a truck driver, and you had an arson or a GTA or something of that nature back in the 60s or the 70s, you could not have a Twix card. But every Latino driver and every Russian and Chinese driver who came in here with no background, they couldn't check, got Twix cards. And we asked them, how's this? How are you allowing?
And they're not even American citizens.
And they're not even American citizens.
And they got green cards. You hear that, folks?
And now they got a Twix card. And now they're a step over you with an $80,000 job as a longshoreman.
Oh, my gosh.
Because you burnt your lady's, I don't know, you set fire to her afro wig or something. I don't.
But
that was a big fire. That's a fire.
So anyway, we got 3 more minutes. And Jim, do you want to close us out?
Well, listen, I think, again, there needs to be a alignment of the actual health and pollution statistics with the regulations in Southern California, and this involves re-examining some of the science that's been used, and I think this will make it possible to have a even better economy in Southern California. And so I'm in the process of trying to continue on this path, working with the U.S. EPA and with the other scientists that want to see an effort made to make California get back on track in terms of being able to compete nationally and in a lot of areas other than just high tech and entertainment. It still needs the blue collar component and middle class jobs and construction and housing and so forth. And so a lot of these are being harmed by unjustified regulatory processes. And so this is my effort now, and I believe that with concern in the general public, they will be forced to change this. And one thing that people can do is resist this effort to add a new 1/2 cent sales tax that would pay for the green agenda, electric cars, electric trucks, and so forth, that aren't going to do anything to change air quality.
Yeah.
And so these are things to watch for, because these agencies like CARB and AQMD don't stop.
Right. Okay, Jim, there's my music. Thank you very much. I want to thank Jim Engstrom for being on, and Randy Thomas. And in other words, what it comes down to, folks, is that the politicians, the Democratic Party is full of it. Okay, they're no good. Get rid of them. That this new green plan, it's all a hoax, it's all a con, it's all fraud, it's all corruption, it's all unethical. That's the bottom line. So I'll join you next week on the Naked Truth Report. Thanks. Bye.